Hello, welcome to the 1:15 session with What's in Store with Campbell Thompson. I am a stand-in today, but I've got a list of questions that from someone else, Fiona McCarthy, unfortunately can't be here, but I'm happy to stick to them because they're really good. So I'm just going to kick off with a bit of an intro. I'm Anna King. I'm CEO of a PR business called Infomare, and we specialise in the property sector and design from both in the trade and in consumer. And today we're going to be talking about the changing nature of the retail landscape, which, as I'm sure you're all aware, has been changing for a considerable amount of time, accelerated by COVID, and that's before we even get on to working from home, sustainability and Brexit, which affects all of us, so more of that later. I'm going to be having a chat with Campbell Thompson, who is Head of Furniture and Lighting at Conran, to talk a little bit about his career and also how he sees the future for all of us too. So I'm going to sit down now. So welcome, Campbell.
Thank you.
So we know from our pre-chat, the incredible job you have at Conran, and we'd just like to hear a little bit more about your story, please.
Well, I guess the story started when I was due to leave school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and at that time a friend suggested a product design course to me, and I looked at the course module and it had everything in it that I really liked doing. So there was kind of drawing, sketching, and then there was model making and photography. So that was the light bulb moment where I realised that I wanted to progress a career in design. And then I moved on to a course at Brunel University, the product design course there, and spent 4 years studying all aspects of design. And as part of that course, there was a 1-year placement in industry. So I spent a year at a product design consultancy in Bristol called Kinnear Dufour. And that was a great real-life experience because I was working on medical design, consumer design, packaging and branding. So once I graduated, I was having a bit of a break after 4 years of intense study. And I actually started a job at Scandium, which I thought at the time was going to be quite interim. But actually, I really enjoyed retail design. I enjoyed retail sort of the environment. I enjoyed interacting with customers and selling. And that kind of progressed into retail management. And at the time, the owners of Scandium were really interested in making sure that the sales team had a great knowledge of design. So I was fortunate to go on many trips. So I was visiting factories in Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, and really seeing how all these design classics were made. And I think that kind of daily interaction with fantastic products really influenced my kind of future career and direction. So after Scandium, I started working for a French company called Ligne Rosie, and that was managing the retail concession within Harrods. So that led on to eventually starting a career in Harrods in retail management. So I managed the contemporary furniture space. And as part of that, I started going on trips to see fairs. And the first fair I went to was Cologne, and I was blown away by the size of the industry and all the different brands. And it was kind of when I started to get an insight into how I thought I maybe can take my design career and incorporate it with retail buying. So I moved into retail buying in Harrods and then spent 5 years there, kind of going through different product categories. So there was lighting, bedroom furniture, contemporary furniture, and then moving on to traditional furniture. And that was a great school for me. I learned a lot in the time. There was a lot of formal courses, which really helped my understanding. But after 5 years, that kind of retail kind of management of brands, it was kind of missing a little bit of creativity for me. And so that's when I joined Heels. And I had both parts of the equation. I had selecting retail products from brands, but also the product development side of it. And that's something I was really interested in progressing because I could see that that was going to be using more of my kind of design skills that I had. So that was a fantastic period of both kind of briefing internal design products, but also working with external designers. And that really kind of led me to eventually taking up a role at the Conran shop 6 years ago. And when I joined the Conran shop, there was a very limited own-label offering. So for the last 5 and 6 years, I've been gradually adding own-label products and working with brands on exclusive products and really trying to create unique products that have got kind of a longevity to them and something really sort of the kind of future collectible that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else. So it's been a good journey so far.
It seems like a really solid and broad base.
Yeah.
That you started with. Mm-hmm. Do you think that helps you now in identifying the broader, or actually, I'm going to rephrase that. Does that help you in sorting out the fads from the significant trends in the retail landscape?
Yeah, I think just something I touched on previously, and that was kind of looking at iconic products and products that are designed to last, very much trying to create our own design icons. So when we're looking at products and gaps within our offer, I'm always looking to create something quite iconic with an iconic silhouette, using good materials, good processes, and making sure it's got the right function. So everything we do is about designing for longevity, and I think that's really important.
So what do you think about, we're constantly bombarded in the media, mainstream press as well as our own trade media, about, it's this colour, this design, it's light wood, it's dark wood. How much attention do you pay to that when you're thinking about your design cycle?
I think really what I'm doing from season to season is looking at what, the reasons for why something's a bestseller. So I'm trying to sort of look at the DNA of a product, and that might be that our customer has a real preference for walnut, which they actually do. So it's walnut and oak tends to be the really popular finishes for a Conran shop customer. So I think you just learn from season to season. So we tried ash, but there just wasn't that perception of quality with that wood type. So we obviously try and educate the customer that's very similar to oak. But from season to season, there's just pick up learnings and just adapting and evolving the offer. It's not a revolution. It's just really sort of evolving the offer from season to season.
I think it's sort of, as you were saying, it's trying not to just be responsive to things that are appearing in the press because some minor celebrity got spotted seeing something, staying away from that and being solid. And we spoke earlier actually about the difference between sort of form and function and how you can spot sometimes. You can spot the fad versus the long-lasting trend.
Yeah, I think, again, it's kind of, every day I go to work, I'm surrounded by design classics, and they all have an inherent characteristic, which is, they're still here for a good reason because they're simple, they're well made, they're from high quality materials, and they've got intelligent design. So I think, what you don't see in those kind of products is excessive detail. You don't see decorative elements, which can easily be identified to a particular period of time. A classic piece of furniture still looks good in 20, 50, even 100 years' time, and that's something I'm really conscious of. I don't want to create products with too much excessive detailing that's not required. I think you have to be sort of really watchful of that.
Do you think that it helps that the different buying teams at Conran come together? So you'll have yourself with the textile team.
Yes.
Yeah,
so approximately 12 months before a season, we'll come together, we'll draw a pool of images together. So we're looking at experience of fairs. I normally go to Cologne Furniture Fair, Stockholm, Maison, and then obviously Milan. And I think from those kind of trips, and also looking at vintage pieces that we have in the shop, and then also Instagram's a massive factor. So I'm constantly saving things on Instagram, and what we do is we come together as a team. There's a massive table full of images. We'll just start distilling those images down into seasonal themes and then colour stories, and we apply those across the business. So lifestyle, we use them a lot in textiles, and then I'll pick up some of the colour stories within the products and the finishes of cabinetry or fabrics that I'm using for upholstery.
I'm sure Top Drawer will be delighted to hear that you do go to all the shows and that they're really important. Do you think that in terms of vastness, I suppose, of offer, that Milan is still the front runner? Is Italy still the centre of design?
It is, but interestingly, I know a lot of brands now that are not going to Milan purely for the ecological reason, because of the wastefulness of the stands, the cost of moving everything from, for example, I think Vitra are no longer going to be exhibiting there. So there's a real sort of, some brands are taking the conscious thought to be sustainable, not just in materials, but also in the way that they bring product to market. So Milan will gradually become a little bit more modest, I think.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that the fun stuff happens outside of the main
Exactly.
show.
Yeah, that's definitely more. A lot of brands are now using their showrooms instead of actually showing at Salone.
No. I just wanted to pick up on something more specific about shows, actually, and your the area you're in charge of at Conran, which is, I know at Top Drawer they've been seeing the home category of lighting has increased. Has lighting been an area of increase at Conran?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many product gaps because we've only really started this journey about 5 years ago. So I'm constantly looking at. I've got basically a big matrix of products and categories, so I know what I need to fill. And I think with lighting, it's becoming a little bit more accessible because the technology behind lighting is far more modular now. So LED filaments are getting smaller, chip and board modules are getting easier, batteries are getting better. So we're obviously looking at portable lighting as well in terms of additions to the category. But I think with everything, I'm always looking at how to make sure that the product is repairable. There's no point just creating a one-unit plastic product that you then can't repair. And I think touching on that, I think the materiality is really important because we won't be using plastic. We'd rather use wood, ceramic, or some other material that's got a little bit more kind of recycling ability.
So both when you're making your own products and also buying in others, is that something you really look at now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of brands are doing that. So it's just a matter of time before they're actually forced to if they're not. I mean, the government just introduced the kind of single-use plastic ban, which comes in October. So I think that was interesting this week because that's going to be the start of a lot of change.
Yeah. Are there any particular accreditations that you look at or stand over? Does it have to be FSC, for example?
Absolutely. Everything has to be FSC. We're members of FIRA, Furniture Research Association, also Lighting Industry Association. So everything we do, we get checked out. We get products tested. We're also part of Positive Luxury. So we're working towards accreditation in terms of luxury. So there's a thing called the butterfly mark. So we've been guided through different stages and making sure that we're as sustainably minded as possible.
Yeah, I think, and design plays an important part in this as well, doesn't it? Because actually, in shops like Conran are perfectly positioned for it because it's the whole buy well, buy once, and you buy a classic, and you don't ever have to replace. Yeah, no,
that's very true. I think there is an argument to being more mindful of what you're buying and making sure that it's a product you're buying for life. I mean, I think about my own home and what I've got, and I've had it. I've had a lot of things for 10, 15 years. And I know they're going to be maintained in my home. They're not throwaway products. So yeah, you do have to spend a little bit more for quality. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And what do you think about repairing what you have as well, rather than replacing?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's down to designers and brands to make sure that that's a possibility. That's why I'm working on a few lights at the moment, and I want them to be modular in the sense that if something happens with the chip and board, you can replace that element, and also with the batteries, because there's no point having a product that's just got 1 or 2 years life. It has to have longer life than that.
Yeah, maybe this will be the end of sort of inbuilt obsolescence.
Yeah, actually, when I was studying at university, that was something I was really uncomfortable with. The idea of people designing in planned obsolescence, I thought it was terrible. I think that's probably one reason I moved away from products into more furniture, because I enjoyed the sort of natural materials and the sort of honesty that was coming from that kind of product.
Yeah. No, it's true. So we're talking about other big trends, because I'm sort of mindful. I've got a long list here, and I'm about 25% down it. But another big trend is for all of us, I think, is the working from home trend, brought on or accelerated certainly by COVID, which changed all our retail habits.
Yep.
But I think it probably for lots of us changed how we furnished our houses, because we had to make some space for working from home regardless of what we did. Have you seen that reflected in the sales at Conran at all?
Oh, absolutely. During that period we were selling a lot of desks, and actually didn't have many desks within our own label collection, so that was one of the sort of quickest things I had to develop. So I worked with a few independent designers on desks, and that's still something we're looking at. So not just desks, but flexible side tables that can be used for adaptable situations. So working on a sofa, for example. But also, I think we touched on it earlier, but portable lighting is becoming more important as well for working at home, because the amount of times you're in a team or Zoom call and it starts to get dark, and you're mid-call, it's very easy to grab a portable light and then move it around to sort of light your area, which I think is important.
Yeah. I think vanity plays into that as well, because we all know that a lot of lighting makes it all look better. Yeah. Okay. And do you see the increase in wanting product? No, again, I'm going to rephrase this, because I think it depends on what sort of house you've got. Not everybody has the luxury of having a separate study that they can put work style furniture in, but they've got to integrate it into their everyday life. And actually, you don't necessarily want a rotten task chair or you know, a nasty filing cabinet in the corner. You want it to be something that's aesthetically pleasing. So brands need
Absolutely.
to work harder to do both.
Yeah, we were very mindful of that, in that not everyone wants a technical task chair, especially if it's in an open plan living room where you might be working at a dining table, or you might have a small niche where you've got a desk. No, so we're absolutely looking at the offer and making sure that we had task chairs that were kind of home friendly, using the right materials and the right colours. And yeah, not everybody wants a super technical task chair. So yeah, that we had to balance the offer to make sure we had that, but also chairs that were more kind of, more homely.
Yeah, yeah. So looking ahead now to what's going to happen next 12 to 18 months, have you got any wisdom to share with us of trends that you think might be coming through?
I think we have seen the emergence of sort of curvaceous trends that will continue. I think people want that kind of giving way to minimum. There's more softer shapes, and that continues both in lighting and furniture. I also think that kind of the use of natural materials is going to continue. Certainly within our own edit, we're I've deliberately taken out 100% cotton from the fabric collection because it uses a hell of a lot of water to produce that type of fabric. So we replaced that with a linen. But just like little things like that, making sure that the materials we use are sustainable. That's something that's not really a trend. It's just something people are going to have to incorporate into product creation process.
No, definitely. Is there anything you see that really impresses you in terms of innovation in that area?
Yeah, there's a lot of upholstery manufacturers that are moving away from petrochemical foams.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I'm actually looking at as well. We've got our first sofa which has no foam whatsoever launching this season, and I think that's the amount of foam that's used in upholstery, and it's not easy to recycle. I think that's a big area of innovation that's going to come out soon, and making sure that we're not kind of using foam when we don't need to.
And I suppose there's also the logistics side as well in terms of how items are packed and shipped.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so again, that's something we're looking at and making sure that the packaging guidelines that we give to factories that are working on our products, we're not using polystyrene, we're not using kind of plastics, we're keeping it as environmentally friendly as possible. And that's part of the accreditation we're working to with Positive Luxury. They're guiding us in that sense.
Right. Okay. So Positive Luxury, is it? I don't know anything about it at all.
Okay.
Could you explain a bit more?
Yeah, it's Positive Luxury is an organisation that kind of help brands with their ESG. Right. So it's making sure that we're going through the correct processes. We're up to date with the relevant governance in terms of legislation that's coming up. But it's also the full supply chain will help us look at the supply chain and make sure that we're kind of adhering to sustainable practices, and at the end of that we'll get accreditation, but it's quite a long journey.
Yeah. Can I just ask, actually, because I'm talking about sustainability because it's fascinating, but in the audience, is sustainability like a number one priority? Could you just raise your hand if you believe it is for you now? Yeah, I'd say it's kind of as many as you'd hope, really. But okay, let's move on. I'm really sorry about my voice as well, by the way. I couldn't speak on Wednesday, so you're having to put up with this awful croak, but I'm going to throw out some questions in a moment. Do you anticipate that the changing economic situation, if we do tip into recession, I don't know, it depends which newspaper you read, will affect the buying habits of your consumers?
Yeah, it definitely will affect it. I think when the property market slows, people's immediacy or the need to furnish their home quickly, that kind of subsides, and I think people are taking longer to make decisions. I think one of the problems with retail at the moment is that this constant cycle of discounting means that customers are constantly looking for a discount. And it's a shame that furniture is like that, because there's different parts of industry where like if you're buying an Apple product, you pay the price and that's it. There's no discounting. So I think people are taking longer to make purchases, and I think hopefully we'll see people invest in better products and not so much fast furniture, which is a horrible phrase. But hopefully, that's something that's changing. I think it's hard to justify that now.
Do you think as an industry we could probably do a better job of explaining the manufacturing process and the skill and the craftsmanship that goes into a lot of products that we produce?
I think that is one of the biggest challenges, is getting the product stories across.
Yeah.
And the sales team need to be fully aware of what it takes to bring a product to market, how to care for it. It's all something that's really important, and I think it's with that extra information that you give to customers, they can see more value in the product they're buying. And obviously, if it's got longevity, then that's a good thing too.
Yeah. It's very interesting. So when we move on to this, it's partly sustainability, but also that other big trend, Brexit, when you're looking at where you're buying from and the problems that inevitably we're all going to have if we're not having them already, in terms of importing and exporting. So is that sort of on your agenda to look at?
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely looking at kind of UK production where possible. We've got a lot of upholstery, and we're looking at a cabinet range made in the UK. And then outside of the UK, it's kind of Portugal or Italy. We get a small fraction made in Malaysia. But generally, we're looking at European production and UK production, because carbon footprint is going to be part of the calculation soon as well. So
yeah.
I think it's important to make sure that you're not moving products around the world, because it's not just a question of the time it takes, but also the impact and the cost.
Yeah, and damaging local environments, logistics, everything.
Yeah, no, and actually logistics is quite complicated now. Just after the pandemic eased, the cost of a container was exorbitant. Something that went from, say, about $4,000 up to close to $20,000. So that was having an impact on all the costs, and then it obviously influenced retail pricing, which was negative.
Yeah, and at some point you have no choice but to pass that on.
Yeah, well, a lot of people were taking lower margins at the time, but thankfully that's not such a problem anymore. Yeah. But it's the time it takes to bring something to market is a lot longer with Far East supply. I think you also have to look at the kind of the political agenda at the moment, and I think sometimes there is concern with what happened with the relationship between the UK and China, and a lot of people are sort of trying to de-risk the development process by making sure that more and more products are made in Europe.
Yeah, which many here is a really good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to sort of end here to see if anybody would like to ask Campbell anything.
Can't hear that.
We can't hear you. Can you?
How has the COVID and the pandemic affected business activity in this country?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's had a huge impact, both in the sense of delays to products. Trying to get products across the world has been very challenging. I think, as I touched on there, the cost of container shipment's been hard. But not only that, there was the blockage at ports. It was really hard to explain to customers why their orders delayed. And at a certain point, customers were like, you're not still using the COVID excuse. But it was very true. It went on for a long, long time, and it's only just got better recently. And then you obviously got Brexit to add into that, which is not a welcome addition.
Has it been implemented, Brexit? I know we had a vote in favor of Brexit, but the government was very slow to implement it. So has it gone through finally, Brexit?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely there, and we have a lot of problems getting things from Europe to the UK. There's the delays, there's the custom charges. It's made everything more expensive. I mean, in fact, that's what it was like in the 70s before we joined the European Union. There was all sorts of funny practices in trying to get goods to and from Europe. So we just made life harder for ourselves, which is regrettable. Yeah.